Hey guys, Zeteo here. I'm sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I've been doing reviews all day. Um, but yeah, we're looking at a 5v5 replay analysis today. This was submitted to me. I was a spectator in this match, actually. We're going to be taking a look at Lethal as our purple player. So let's jump in here. All right, so Lethal. Let's see how you open, how you do things. I'll try to give you a little tidbits advice on what to improve on. This is CCR, which means wind is total dog. And okay, so first of all here, well, okay, I won't pause, but I will slow down. I'll slow down so I go a one-time speed. So here you are leaving your base immediately with your commander. I do not recommend this. Primarily because you still have metal to work with, and you don't really want to leave your lab unassisted. So assist your lab as much as possible. Get out some cons to do your expanding, and that way you can grow your economy through just having more guys going out and grabbing metal, and then you're boosting your lab so you have enough units that have enough cons, and as you need energy, you can add on more solars or wind if it's a wind map. So that way you are able to spend your metal and crank out a lot of units. Now in this map, because it is a solar map, typically you are spending a lot of metal on energy, which means you don't really have a lot of metal to work with in the initial part of the game. So you want to be moving your commander out at a reasonable time, which means you need to have some cons assisting your lab. Your commander starts moving out, grabbing mexes, like you did with this one, just it was a little bit too early. Try to have some cons out before that, so that the cons can boost. Your commander starts moving pretty early as your metal gets low, and then you can also start sending like a con up here to grab this, and out here to grab these. So primarily, or I guess in generally speaking, you want your commander, you want your commander assisting your lab, building solar as you need energy, and just cranking out a lot of units. And that way you'll have enough to defend and do things. Typically, you want grunts, by the way, as your starter unit, as just like a cheap, fast unit that can get places to defend. These rocket bots and this thug are more slow-moving, powerful units, and they can be really nice eventually. But for the most part, you need fast units to be able to defend what you have. So like if a bunch of grunts or pawns showed up and ran this way and just continued on towards your base, it'd be very difficult for these rockets and thugs to be able to take those out. So, primarily do that. Primarily get grunts, add on some cons in the early game. And when you have a couple of cons assisting the lab, your third con can be grabbing more mexes. You can grab this one, start grabbing these, and then your commander can be moving out, grabbing the mexes out the front. And that way you can start setting up defenses and things in a forward position to help protect all the mexes and things behind it. So yeah, your commander's idle. That's probably just a mistake on your part. It happens. But yeah, you are quite behind because you're not doing a lot with it. That's 300 build power. These cons only have 85 as Cortex. If you hold I, you can get this detailed information. You can also look at the bottom here, 85 build power on these cons. 300. Let's see, 300 build power for the commander. So, just FYI, you always want to keep your commander doing stuff. Utilize that build power, utilize its strength by being in a more forward position. Alright, so these blitzes are getting the back of your base, and you have these slow units. So these slow units are having trouble getting up here in time to defend. Now, as it happens, you'll kind of just AFKs those units and they all just get picked off here. But that could have been really, really bad. That could have been like everything. And they could have continued on to orange, and then it's just like continuing down the line, doing damage to all the players, and then all of a sudden the game's over because everybody took damage and isn't able to produce as many units. This advanced solar, by the way, you don't really want this. So this is kind of a tricky thing to talk about or to like correct, because it's I don't know, it's just a tricky thing to understand. But basically, advanced solars cost a lot of energy. 4,000 energy is a lot at this point in time on this kind of map. So it is a metal map. You know, the maxes are 2.3s, which means you should have a bunch of metal. And it's harder to get energy because of that. You kind of need to build a lot of solars in order to have enough energy. So a lot of metal can go into solars, and if you try to build these too early, then you're using so much energy to produce these that they're not going to really pay for themselves for a long time. And so basic solars are actually a better choice until you run out of metal. And then as you run out of metal, you want to replace these basic solars with advanced ones. Here again, you're leaving your lab unassisted. By the way, these labs only have 100 build power. So considering they cost almost 700 metal, 620 for the bot lab, 720 for the vehicle lab.
Commander has fallen.
It's just a lot, or it's a lot of money for very little build power. So that's why you want to assist it with these cons whenever possible. So that's why your metal's high. I'm not sure, maybe you were given some metal as well. Looks like no. Okay. So that's just all built up from not having build power there. So let's put it on your view, take a look at what you actually see here. I think the red player here, Contra, is just realizing, or it looks like Contra took some damage, killed the Comet and stuff like that, but realizing that some of these mexes are not taken, so he's just kind of coming up here and taking them to make sure someone on your team is getting that metal, because otherwise, without a mex on it, it's just kind of sitting there not doing anything. Now you do have a reasonable amount of units at this point that just kind of built up over time. It's 9 minutes into the game, so basically you could have had these units a lot sooner just by having a better spending of your money. Better spending by assisting your lab more. Like, you have enough money and enough income to have a con turret. Con turrets are basically your most efficient form of build power early on. You know, and build power is kind of this like third resource. Yeah, it's like this third resource that is kind of in a way hidden. Like, you have your metal and energy, and that's obvious because you have these two bars here. But you need build power to spend it, so it's kind of a third resource that is kind of like the time resource. And the more build power you have, the more you can spend. And it's important so that you get rid of the metal that you have. This is like 600 metal that could be in units, that could have been in having these mexes faster, that could have been in more infrastructure, or just like having more units to be able to push harder and faster with more stuff. You know, and your commander can be doing stuff as well. Let's take a look at how much. Okay, so you have 31 APM. That's not that little. I mean, 30 is pretty good. So yeah, just trying to spend it on making sure that mexes are grabbed so that you can increase your income. Spend it on, you know, these cons are great, but it's not great if you're idle. So like these two here, not doing anything at the moment. And your metal is still pretty high, so just a con turret would be very, very useful. Yeah, I think you're primarily using your APM on the battle with Contra, which is fine. I mean, it's fine that you were helping out, but you could help out even more if you just had more units coming out. Like, imagine just having twice the number of units here, because this is 600 worth. These 3 wreck bots and these 2 thugs, 610 metal. Yeah, so you could have just had more and done more with it. In terms of unit positions and what you're doing with all that, you could potentially be threatening this, but you're helping out Contra down here, so it's actually fine that you're doing that, and kind of ignoring your ally, or since, you know, since Teal's down here threatening Contra, like it's helpful to Contra to you know, to the red player to be able to assist a little bit. But this is relatively undefended up here. You know, you do have radar, so you can see how many dots are there, and you know that, like, you know, obviously these are probably mexes. right? These dots here. There's probably a mechs up here, and there's probably a tower. Let's take a look and see if I'm right. Nope, it's actually a con turret. But otherwise, mechs is, yeah. So really, the only thing defending this area is this light laser tower here, and this one over here. Otherwise, it's basically free. And these rocket bots are very, very strong. A good way to take down towers. So these could be threatening here.
Commander died.
Looks like Contra blew up and maybe took out this commander, or maybe just blew up, I'm not sure. But either way, just try to have more units by having more build power. When you do have 6 cons, I mean, that's fine too. You can just have cons for build power. But it's kind of tricky building up like that. Like, you want to have your commander boost out the first couple so that you have cons available to boost out more cons. His cons are an okay choice here because they do generate a bit of energy. Considering these solars produce only 20 and they cost 150 metal, doing cons for build power is kind of fine. But yeah, again, not fine to have these idle. So ideally, you'd have these grabbing this mechs. They could have been moving, grabbing these mechs. They do belong to orange, so at least somebody's getting them. And yeah, you have a lot of rocket bots and stuff at the fronts. At this point, like, you're past the halfway point, so you know, you should be soaking up more metal than your opponents. So they don't necessarily need to push. But since Contra is pushing, you could also be pushing to help out and end the game, especially since you start seeing T2. When you see T2 like that, it sort of should be this red flag of like, either you need to have T2 of your own, or you need to have, basically you want to be pushing your units, and you see that because that means they don't, you know, they're not going to have a lot of units out. They have like a couple bulls coming out this way, you know, and that's all the way from up here. So, you know, that just means that there's opportunity to do damage. Contra is doing the thing where he's just jumping on that, you know, noticing that there's that T2 and taking stuff out. So, you know, it's all reasonable stuff. Your commander here, taking some damage from the bull. Let's see, are you trying to cloak? No. It could cloak and degun this this bull.
Commander died.
If you don't get close enough to degun, you take out a couple of your units. It happens. But yeah, the game's basically over. Contra basically won it through this position here, or I guess through the bottom position, and then running up the side into the bases. So, I mean, as long as you held on and you helped with Contra's push, that was, you know, all good stuff. Contra loves to resurrect commanders, especially in small teams, and it's like, you know, use them, move them forward, blow up on stuff. So that's kind of what he's doing. I kind of want to load up this replay again and do it from Contra's perspective, so that you get a sense of like what's different, or like do a comparison thing. In fact, I think I'll do that. So I hope you guys don't mind me extending this replay here. I'm gonna just exit out of here and restart it. Let's take a look here. Let's open this back up. Because yeah, I think seeing the different perspectives can really help out. Just point out all the things he's doing well, all the things that you know, and just compare it to you and show you like what's different here. All right, so I goofed and I forgot to take away the loading screen that I have in. So we're going to do this for a second time, and we're going to look at Contra's view. So let's jump in here. All right, Contra is more of a 1v1 player, so his 1v1 OS is significantly higher. Though he hasn't been playing as much recently, so he's a little bit more playing for fun instead of trying to like win all the time. And yeah, this is just one of those matches where he's just kind of just trying to have some fun, like doing some wacky stuff. So like it's a little bit out of, you know, out of the normal kind of way you would normally play. But Contra, you know, just trying to you know, get his commander out in like weird spots and do this like commander resing and stuff that he does later on. Oh, interesting that he goes for 3 solars. That's a straight mistake. I think Contra doesn't play enough to like remember all that stuff anymore. But yeah, you only need 65 energy for that lab, so definitely a bit of a mistake. But this does allow him to, like, for sure have a full metal bar. Did I take away? I took away the screen, right? Okay, I just want to make sure. So yeah, this allows him to have a full energy bar, and then he can just boost the lab immediately afterwards, which I don't think is as, like, I'm pretty sure it's not as good as just doing 2 solar lab, solar boost lab, because then your lab's done a little bit sooner, and then you can start using the build power from the lab to crank out units while you're building that solar. So it's just you know, an extra 100 build power in the meantime. So his first con immediately goes out, starts grabbing mexes. Meanwhile, it looks like your commander kind of went back and forth, looking to defend, I guess, instead. So yeah, all this walking is really bad. You don't want to walk. You want to utilize that build power as much as possible. And sometimes that means going out, grabbing mexes with your commander. Sometimes that means boosting your lab. But very, very importantly, have them do something. Very, very important. So yeah, he's just grabbing those mexes, continuing on. And he's also applying a lot of pressure. So that's where the 1v1 APM, or, you know, high octane APM gamer comes out. And that's what he shines at. So he's just sending units across the map and doing all that stuff. But note that he has a lot of these cheaper units, these ticks, these pawns. They're faster, they can get places, they can just see what's going on, and that provides some vision. And he's also getting away with a late radar because of that. For, you know, players not at that skill level, I would recommend just having a radar at some point pretty early on, like before now, just so that you can see those raiders come in and, you know, you need to be able to put your units in the proper positions to defend your mexes and things like that. But yeah, he's building lots of ticks here. These ticks have a lot of line of sight. There's, you know, scout units, so it's one of the benefits of having ticks or having scouts. And so yeah, he sees the army here. He decides, okay, his army is here, so now I have opportunity to go in this way. So a little bit of scouting with the ticks, and then moving his army into, you know, potentially do some damage, things like that. His metal is getting a little bit high here, and that's because he only has 1 con on the lab, and he also has all these mexes already. So he really should have probably built on at least the 2nd con. Could have probably even gotten away with a con turret instead. But yeah, Contra, he's like me. If I don't play very regularly, I will lose a lot of skill. I will just, like, not be able to perform or play it nearly as well as I used to. So yeah, some mistakes on his side for sure. But yeah, now he has that 2nd con out. Now he's boosting. He needs even a 3rd con at this point because his metal's risen so high. But yeah, just taking care of business. The next thing he should probably build is a resbot to pick up these constructors. Building new constructors just to send all the way out here, like, takes a while, and then you just lose a lot of time. So picking them up is better in this case. Just pick them up so that they can continue on expanding. But yeah, it looks like he's just building, making sure that he has enough units to apply pressure, make sure he doesn't die to whatever, and you know, we'll pick it up eventually, I suppose. Has plenty of metal in the bank right now, so not too big of a concern. And at the same time, since you're his neighbor and you have these slower units, Teal has this opportunity to do things. So Contra's trying to either defend you or defend himself just by moving units into position, you know, worried about his flank a little bit. So yeah, now you're moving into position to defend, but this may, you know, these units are just too fast for your slow units, so they get in here to do some damage. Meanwhile, a couple of Teal units get back here as well to pick off a couple things. But yeah, Contra actually loses quite a bit of mexes here just because of all that, and now he's going to have to forfeit the front a little bit because of this run by. And that's when you clean up all these blitzes. Let's see. Okay, yeah, he's adding on those nanos now. So yeah, he has some, you know, a bit of metal banks, so it's not like the end of the world for him. But yeah, he definitely needs to get these mexes back online. And yeah, he even sends his commander up here to, like, protect this flank a little bit better. And just forfeit a little bit of this right here. This is like a cheeky move that Contra, like Contra just knows how to put his commander into good positions. And so he could swing around, degun the LLT, and then like cut off reinforcements. Meanwhile, sending these units forward to you know, kill these units. But with this commander here, I think he knows that he can't really get away with that at the moment. Looks like he's going to move his commander over there anyways.
Commander has fallen.
Someone died. Looks like the blue player. But yeah, this is a very forward position from our green player. So he's, you know, he's got plenty of units to defend to make sure that this doesn't advance too quickly. And then he's using his commander to like be annoying somewhere else. And this is maybe enough units to just kill this commander, especially if that player is not paying attention and not degunning, which he is not. So this whole thing gets taken out. And its commander's like in this front position, and this is very scary for a lot of people, but this is what Contra is good at, is like, you know, dodging stuff, degunning other things, and then just like getting out of there. He was like thinking about going into the hole here, into the crater, decides to run back instead. But yeah, looking at his base, you know, he's kind of just added on con turrets as necessary, building on cons as necessary to like grab these mexes back. And adding on energy as necessary. He's maybe a little bit overbuilt on energy, but yeah, in fact, this is going to be too much for sure. But yeah, when it comes to solar energy, you don't really want to overbuild it because of the very high metal cost. Any extra energy that you build that just gets, you know, it's like overflowing. All that extra energy is not benefiting you, and it's sort of like, you know, you're just putting money into something that could have been units. But yeah, now Contra has this nice juicy commander to either, I guess, resurrect or reclaim. Contra being Contra, he'll probably resurrect it, or maybe he'll eat some of it for now and then resurrect it later. I'm not sure. But yeah, with these fast units, like the more that green goes up here to threaten you, it becomes so much harder for him to come down here to defend these raids. So I think Contra's just looking for that opportunity, running in there with the raiding units that he has, trying to utilize the fact that there's raiding units that he has, utilize that speed, do a little bit of damage, be annoying. Even taking taking out the converters there. Taking out the converters allowed him to take out an extra solar there, so that's nice. Okay, so he is resurrecting. He's got all these resurrection bots, and part of the stack of resurrection bots is to be able to repair the commander. And when you're working in small teams in these narrow lanes, you know, he's only got so much to worry about. Whereas if this is a 1v1, you'd have to worry about the entire map. A commander can be a big deal, a very big deal, because it's a lot of power. It's a lot of, you know, there's the D-guns, there's the, it has a lot of hit points for a T1 unit. You know, can build mexes and stuff. Just like having them on the front line is so good, as long as you don't die. And you know, the D-guns really pay for themselves for sure. But yeah, when you're taking care of this narrow area and you don't have a lot of mexes to work with, it means you're not cranking out a ton of units. So then the power of the commander becomes even stronger, because there isn't that much to, like, you know, deal with it. Yeah, a bit of a raid from Teal trying to return the favor, or taking revenge for his ally, I suppose. I don't like it when people do this and leave the lab when they have a different lab. You just don't have the money to really produce out of both, and so it's just kind of sitting here as a 650 metal investment. Now, the reason why people keep it is because if they want to add on res bots really quickly, they can. They don't have to build the lab then, but I guess for me personally, like, I'd rather just have that money in units. So yeah, big raids coming here. Looks like they're going to go for the commander, but they don't know that Contra is just going to D-gun everything. Because he's exceptionally good with those D-guns. Probably one of the best, honestly, when it specifically comes to D-guns. It's sort of like a new player will just die to like, you know, a dozen pawns or something. This was intentional, by the way. Will die to like a dozen pawns, and the commander will just be dead. A good player will be able to take like 20 pawns, depending on the approach of the pawns and how good the D-guns are. And then when it comes to Contra, it's sort of like you need like 40 pawns. It's just like insane how much he can D-gun. Okay, so the reason why he blew up here was to take out the commander, the enemy commander, and all the units that the enemy had. The enemy needed to back up. I forget if it was teal or green that was there, but either way, they needed to back up so they don't die to the explosion. And now Contra just floods all the units down here. He's got his commander up here to, you know, de-gun some more stuff. And yeah, so now it's just this entire army, and there's not much to defend it. And now there's this big wreck field for him. There's the two commanders here that he's going to apparently resurrect. And then, yeah, you can even just go forward and de-gun some more stuff with his existing commander. Yeah, and he's getting some... I should also note that he's getting some extra energy for resurrection. Because it costs 50% of the unit cost to resurrect. And so, you know, things like commanders take a lot. So that's why his energy's low, despite
Commander has fallen.
Income for his metal income. But yeah, he basically just won the game with that. Just the de-gun shenanigans and all that down here. Really powerful move. You'll see that in, well, you'll see it in small teams too, but I see it a lot in 8v8s where, well, I do see it a lot in small teams as well, where a commander will intentionally walk forward in order to destroy defenses or
commander died.
You know, a group of enemy units. And then, you know, they're keeping their own units back so they don't die in the explosion. But then, yeah, if you're able to take out some defenses and some units or whatever, you can then rush forward, you know, and clean up the place. And just like, that's a way to break through a defense. And Contra did that pretty masterfully. And yeah, I think just, you know, players at this level not understanding how strong Contra is with that, and not understanding how many units are actually required to take out the commander. And even if they did take out the commander, I mean, I think it was back here somewhere. I'm trying to remember the exact situation, but I think it was basically like the enemy surrounded the commander, and Contra didn't have like a ton of units like on his commander, so if it did explode, it would just take out all those units. So it's sort of like, you know, how many units are you willing to trade to kill the commander, because now you're going to be down on army supply. Another big reason why this team lost is because Grassy Tiger went T2 at a time when his allies really needed something to happen on this side of the map. It just wasn't...
Commander has fallen.
What's it called? There was just too much pressure from Contra at the bottom
ended
for the blue team to go T2. Like, they needed to return the pressure somewhere else or defend. And going T2... I mean, that'd be a reasonable thing if it was, like, large teams, because there's, like, always another player to help defend a lane that's, like, you know, not doing so well. Whereas in small teams, it's like you leave and then all of a sudden, like, you know, there's only so many players, so like one player going somewhere else is a big percentage of your team going somewhere else, and that means there's a hole or there's a means for you to get in there. But yeah, a little bit of rambling. I apologize for that, but I hope you I hope you got a good comparison of like how he opened, primarily. And just make sure that, you know, the commander's doing stuff, because the commander's very much an asset, as we saw with the D-guns and moving forward and positioning and all that. But also just early on, making sure that it's busy, you know, helping to build solar when you need energy, helping to crank units out, And then the units that he cranked out were faster units. A reason why you'd want thugs and rocket bots would be to break a position. How do I say this? Like, they're more efficient for breaking a position. Whereas, like, a stream of grunts and well, I shouldn't say a stream, but like you ball up a bunch of grunts and pawns or whatever, and send them into defenses, like, those aren't that great against defenses, but they can do it if you have the economic advantage. And then, you know, rocket bots and thugs are just better at doing like a stronger, slower push. So what am I saying? So with that, it's sort of like early on, definitely get the, you know, lean more into grunts to like be able to go places, get places to defend against things like those blitzes. And you can also, like, you know, move them around, like look at things. They have a little bit more vision, I believe, than, especially grunts. Grunts definitely have a bit more vision than, you know, things like a rocket bot. Let's see, vision, 500. Rocket bots, 344. Thug, 380. So they can, like, see further, and that allows you to get some information before engaging the enemy. And so you can, like, move them around to just, like, you know, see what your enemy has and not necessarily engage them. Anyways, I hope this all helped. This is Zeteo signing out. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.